When Michael Jordan walked into a courtroom to take on NASCAR, it was clear something major was about to happen. The basketball legend spent an hour testifying, and what he said could change racing forever. This took place on Friday, December 5th, in a crowded federal courthouse in Charlotte, North Carolina. So many people showed up that the court had to set up 2 overflow rooms just so everyone could watch. The judge even made a lighthearted comment when Jordan approached the stand, saying, "I take it, Mr. Jordan is the next witness." People were literally turned away because there wasn't any more space. The day began with Steve O'Donnell, NASCAR's president, finishing his testimony. He covered many topics, but here's the key point. During the charter negotiations, NASCAR tried to introduce a cost cap, a limit on how much teams can spend. Some teams liked the idea, others didn't, so NASCAR dropped it. O'Donnell also described a meeting that got very heated. Curtis Polk, who works for Jordan's team, became extremely aggressive during negotiations. O'Donnell said Polk even threatened to throw him out of his own meeting, calling it the most difficult meeting he'd ever had. But Jeffrey Kessler, the attorney for the race teams, pushed back by bringing up private messages that NASCAR executives had exchanged about team owners like Richard Childress and Heather Gibbs. Those messages showed NASCAR wasn't exactly being respectful behind closed doors either. O'Donnell tried comparing NASCAR to IndyCar, claiming IndyCar teams only receive 25% of their operating costs from TV money. Kessler pointed out that IndyCar's entire TV deal is worth just $8 million a year, and that when you do the calculations, IndyCar actually gives teams 200% of the TV revenue they earn, while NASCAR gives teams only 45%. That comparison did not bolster NASCAR's case. When Kessler asked why NASCAR wouldn't make charters permanent like franchises in other sports, O'Donnell replied that it was because there were too many unknowns. He said NASCAR needed flexibility because they didn't know what kinds of cars teams might need in the future. He also admitted that NASCAR's board had outright rejected the idea of permanent charters. Then came Heather Gibbs, and her testimony deeply moved everyone. Heather is the co-owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, one of NASCAR's most successful teams with 5 championships. She never expected to become a team owner. She stepped into the role the day after her husband, Coy Gibbs, unexpectedly died in his sleep in 2022, the very night their son, Thank You, won a championship. This was the first time she publicly spoke about losing her husband, and the emotion was evident. She even brought a moment of levity to the courtroom, joking that Joe Gibbs Racing should really have 6 championships, not 5, because Denny Hamlin was leading the championship race at Phoenix with just 2 laps to go when a caution came out and cost them the win. The room needed that brief laugh, but things turned serious when she discussed a letter she wrote to NASCAR. She sent it to Jim France, who effectively runs NASCAR, and to other top officials, explaining why permanent charters mattered so much to her family and the team. NASCAR executive Steve Phelps had called team owners reckless with their spending, which upset her. She received a kind response from Lisa France Kennedy, and for a moment it seemed NASCAR might actually consider their request. But internal messages told a different story. Steve O'Donnell had messaged other NASCAR executives while watching Jim France read Heather's letter aloud, saying that France was swearing at nearly every sentence because he was so angry. O'Donnell later tried to say he didn't mean it literally, but the impact was already felt. For Heather and her father-in-law, Coach Joe Gibbs, permanent charters weren't a luxury. They were the most crucial issue they were fighting for. She explained that teams need to know their investments can't be taken away on a whim. Joe Gibbs Racing employs 450 people whose livelihoods depend on the team surviving. So why did Joe Gibbs Racing sign NASCAR's charter agreement if they didn't like it? Heather explained that the document was something no business would ever sign willingly. It felt like having a gun to your head. If they didn't sign, they would have nothing. As a licensed real estate agent familiar with contracts, she said this was one of the worst agreements she'd ever seen. NASCAR gave all the teams until 6 p.m. on Friday, September 6th to sign a 112-page agreement, only 6 hours to decide the fate of their entire business. 13 teams signed. Only Jordan's team and Front Row Motorsports refused. Heather warned that the way the agreement was written meant teams could end up in the same situation again in 7 years. Then it was Michael Jordan's turn, and you could feel the energy shift. Jordan said he had been a NASCAR fan since he was 11 or 12. Why would he do that if everything was so uncertain? Jordan said Denny Hamlin convinced him that having a third car would increase their chances of winning a championship. "I'm pretty sure they know I love to win," Jordan said. "Denny convinced me that getting a third driver improved our chances to win, so I dove in." So why didn't Jordan sign NASCAR's charter deal? He said it simply wasn't a smart business move. The contract included a clause preventing him from suing NASCAR, and he believed that was wrong. But the real breaking point was the September 6th deadline, NASCAR essentially telling teams, sign right now or lose everything. That was too much. Jordan explained that team owners had been asking for permanent charters long before he entered the sport, but NASCAR had never seriously entertained the idea. Teams repeatedly asked for four main things: permanent charters, a voice in how the sport is run, access to revenue from new business opportunities, and a share of new money NASCAR earns. NASCAR rejected all four. Without permanent charters, Jordan said teams have no real leverage. When negotiating with NASCAR, it's completely one-sided. And here's what makes his stance even more compelling. Jordan's team actually makes money. They earned over $2 million in 2022 and more than $3.5 million in 2023. Most NASCAR teams lose money every year. Bob Jenkins of Front Row Motorsports said he's lost around $100 million since starting his team in the early 2000s. Even though he won the 2021 Daytona 500, Jordan isn't doing this for himself. He's doing it for the other team owners.